வணக்கம். நாங்கள் இந்த வீடியோல பாஸ் பேப்பர்ல வந்த சில டேட்டாபேஸ் கொஸ்டின்களுக்கு விடையளிப்போம். பிறகு அது சம்பந்தமான சில பிராக்டிகல்களை MySQL டேட்டாபேஸில் எப்படி செய்கிறது என்று சொல்லி பார்ப்போம். Since you are given the following two tables in a relational database, right? Our relational database they are given two tables. One table is house and other table is student. The house table have two attributes, house ID and name. Here இதை நாங்கள் பார்த்தோம்னா house ID வந்து key field. அதாவது key field வந்து எங்களுக்கு தெரியும், key field எப்பயுமே யூனிக்காக இருக்கு. Key field should be unique. Unique, right? So house ID is a key field for the house table. Same as in the student table, student ID is the key field. We can see that. So அது வந்து யூனிக்கா இருக்கு. அப்ப student ID வந்து யூனிக். அப்ப அதாவது மற்ற attributes, name and ஒரு attributes, grade and attributes, அடுத்தது house ID என்ற இன்னொரு attributes இருக்கு. அப்ப இதுல பாத்தீங்கன்னா இந்த student tableக்கு student ID key field, house ID வந்து எங்களுக்கு தெரியும் அது வந்து என்னவா இருக்க போகுது, foreign key இருக்க போகுது, foreign key, right? அப்ப house ID foreign key இருக்கிறபடியா இதுல பாருங்க சேம் ஐடி, அதாவது இங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஹவுஸ் ஐடி ஸ்டூடெண்ட் டேபிளுக்கு ஃபாரின் கீ, ஆனா ஹவுஸ் ஐடி ஹவுஸ் டேபிளுக்கு பிரைமரி கீ, ரைட்? அப்ப அது ரெண்டும் தான் இந்த ரெண்டு டேபிளை லிங்க் பண்றதுக்காக நாங்கள் இங்க ஃபாரின் கீயை வச்சுக்கோம். ஃபாரின் கீ நாங்க யூஸ் பண்றது ஏதாவது ரெண்டு ரிலேஷனை லிங்க் பண்றதுக்கு, அதாவது இப்ப நாங்க ஸ்டூடெண்டே ஹவுஸை லிங்க் பண்ணணும்னா இந்த ஹவுஸ் ஐடியை வச்சு தான் லிங்க் பண்ணணும். இப்ப லிங்க் இந்த டைப்பை பார்த்தோம்னா இங்க பாருங்க ஹவுஸ் ஐடி இங்க யூனிக், ஆனா இங்க வந்து டூப்ளிகேட் ஆகுது. அது கருத்து என்னன்னு சொன்னா ஒன் ஹவுஸ் கேன் ஹேவ் மெனி ஸ்டூடெண்ட். உதாரணமா பாத்தீங்கன்னா இங்க பாருங்க இங்க ரெண்டு ஸ்டூடெண்ட், ரைட்? இந்த ரெண்டு ஸ்டூடெண்ட் அதாவது ரஞ்சித்தும் கோபியும் எந்த ஹோபியும் எந்த ஹவுஸுக்கு இருக்கிறார்கள், HS1 என்ற ஹவுஸ் ஐடி, அது கமனு ஹவுஸ், ரைட்? அப்ப ஒரு ஹவுஸ்ல many, so one house can have many students. The above table were created by converting ER diagram given below, right? So they have converted this particular ER diagram and they derive this particular tables, right? So that is the information they are given, right? So then both should match. In the ER diagram இந்த டேபிள் எடுத்திருக்கணும், அதால ரெண்டு இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் இதுல இருக்கிறது match ஆகணும், ரைட்? ஏன்னா இந்த ER diagram வச்சு தான் இதை செஞ்சிருக்கணும், ரைட்? So இப்போ நாங்க இதை பார்ப்போம். இந்த rectangle, the rectangle will say the entity, right? So the entity is the table name, so that the house and student is the entity, right? House entity, if we check the house entity, is having two attributes. The eclipse will say the attributes. There are two attributes for the house table. One is house ID, that is key field, and other one is name. So A definitely should be name, right? A is name. So same as other entity is student. So student is other entity. It has four attributes. One is the foreign key. So these three are the normal attribute, right? Student ID is the key field and D can be name, right? D can be name. It is again normal attributes, right? So name, and E can be grade. E can be grade, right? E can be the grade, right? Or you can interchange both, right? So you can say D grade and E name, right? That is not a problem, right? And if you see the relation, so this will say the relation of this foreign key, right? So that's what we have the foreign key, because two tables should be linked by using the relation, right? If you see the relation, now if you say this HS1, we have two is matching, right? So that meaning one house can have many students, right? That meaning this side one house has many students, right? So that is so many we have to show M, right? So this one and this is M, right? So that is the full table, right? If you see, fill in the following blanks with a suitable label for necessary information A, B, C, D, E, right? So they ask what is A, D, so that we already filled. A is name, B is 1, C is M, and D name, and E grade, or this can change this grade or this name, right? That is not a problem. That question we answered. State whether the relationship between table, student, and house is one-to-one, or one-to-many, or many-to-many. Justify your answer using suitable data from the above tables, right? So they ask us to explain by using the data given here to say whether this is a one-to-many or one-to-one or many-to-many, right? So now we know that it is one-to-many, right? With the data you can find out, right? You can explain that, you can with the table, right? Student table is having the house ID as a foreign key, and that foreign key is duplicating, right? Here HS1 two time is coming, it's duplicate, right? It's have many records match that value, right? So that meaning two students having the same ID. So this foreign key in the student side is having many, right? Because these have duplicating, right? So and but if you see other side, house table is having house ID is unique, right? So this side one, this side many. So the relationship is one to many. That's what, if you now see, you can draw here, right? Gamunu house is having two students. That meaning here many, here one, right? So the relationship house to student is one to many, right? So the answer is one to many, and you have to explain by drawing given this data, right? Justify the answer with this particular data. Question. Write the output of the following SQL statement based on the above tables if any otherwise error, right? இந்த SQL statement run பண்ணி பார்க்கட்டேன், run பண்ண என்ன output வருமண்டும் அப்படி வராட்டி error ரெண்டும் எழுதட்டான், right? Right. முதலாவது SQL, first SQL நாங்க பார்ப்போம். Select asterisk from student where house ID is HS3, right? So that they have given in inverter, that is correct, right? So the asterisk, select asterisk meaning all the field, right? Field should be all the field of the student table, right? So we have to go to the student table. This is a student table. It's having all the field, all four fields should appear in the result, right? Because they have put the asterisk here. The table is student, so this is the table. It's going to fire that particular SQL, right? Work with that particular SQL where house ID is HS3, that is filtering the row, right? To where condition will filter the row where house ID is HS3, right? Only house ID HS3 detail will be displayed, right? So this particular record HC3, right? For this particular record will display, right? So as it is, you have to write, right? Capital symbol, be careful. The whatever they have given as it is, you write here, right? STU004 Hakim 11 3. Only this particular records, only this particular record as it is will appear with the heading, right? Heading also will appear, right? So your answer should have both, right? Write the heading, right? As it is, right? Heading also same, a capital symbol. So student ID capital, here house ID capital, right? Write as it is the heading, and only this particular record you have to write only, because this record only having the HS3 house ID, right? So that would be the answer. This the heading, you have to write this particular record only. That would be the display for that particular SQL statement, right? Other SQL, if you see question, select student ID, house ID, name. So they want three attributes: student ID, house ID, name. மூன்று attributes ஐயும் from student comma table, student house, right? From this both table, right? So they want to display all three attributes from both table, right? So it's a confusing statement, so SQL can't understand clearly. It's an ambiguous statement, right? Example, if you see house ID is in both place, right, to display, and otherwise how they don't know how to link both table, right? So this statement is wrong, so it will find out that we have to write it's an error, right? So if you want the correct answer, right, correct answer, if you want the correct SQL should be like this, right? Select, you have to say which student ID, student dot your student table student ID, right? Student dot student ID comma student dot house ID, right? House dot name, right? Because name is in both places, right? So name also in both place is there, right? So I said house dot name, so the house name, then student student ID, house student house ID, house house name from student comma house both table, and this is in where house ID, house house ID ஓட student house ID ரெண்டு house ID சேர்த்து தான் லிங்க் பண்ணி இன்ஃபர்மேஷனை காட்டணும்னு சொன்னோம். We have to link both table by using house.house ID and student.house ID, right? By using the both house ID, it should link and it should display these attributes. Now clear, right? So if it is like this only, it will be executed here. So most of the informations are missing, so error. If சில practical செய்வோம், right? So MySQL database use பண்ணி சில practical செய்யணும். We are going to do some practical with the MySQL database, right? So now I have connected to the server. So now my server is having many databases, right? First I will create a database, right, on this particular server. So the command is create database, create, right, database, say some name, right? So I will say school, right? My database name is school, right? So go, right? So now you can see, now new database is created, school, right? So now I can double click that. Now I am in the school table, right? So now you can see run SQL queries on database school, right? Whatever query now we write, it will be executed on the school data, because there are many other databases also, right? Whatever query, we first you have to take which database, right? Now is connected school database, right? So whatever we have seen, but the tables which we have seen in questions, I want to create here, right? There were two tables, one is student and house and student table இருந்துச்சு, அதுக்கான create நான் அந்த டேபிளை கிரியேட் பண்ணேன். ஃபர்ஸ்ட்டுக்கு வந்து நாங்கள் இந்த டேபிளை கிரியேட் பண்ணுவோம். இது house table. Now say create table house. The house has house ID that vacha 6 and name vacha 30. That is the data type, right? If it's an integer or vacha or date, like that, whatever field type we have to give in second. That is the SQL statement, right? So now we are going to create a table called house, right, within the school, right? So if we execute this, right, the table will be created in the, now see, school is having one table, right? So now another table also I want to create here, right? So I have to give the statement for that, right? That is a student table, right? So student table, we know that they have given the student table with the table is having the field student ID vacha 6, name vacha 30, grade integer, right, and vacha 6 for the house ID, that is a foreign key, right? Anyhow, right? So foreign key link I didn't write, so on a simple SQL only I wrote here, right? So execute here, right? So when you execute this, you can see here the student table also created. There are two tables but no records, right? So now, right, I want to insert some record into the house table, right? All the as it is, right? So now the command is, right, to insert record, right, in the house, right? So I see, now see, insert in the house, because house table we are into values, right? If you want the field, you can see. If you want all the field, only two field no house is having, that is house ID and the name, right? So that is, there are 1 2 3 4, all four record simultaneously I am going to execute, right? So if you execute this, right, so these records, four record, now see, four rows inserted, right? So inserted, right? So I can see what is it correct. Now see, I can use the selector, select, I can say asterisk from house, right? Select asterisk from house and execute, right? So now see, it will show all four record, right? So now, or else if you want, if you say select asterisk from house, where I can say house ID is equal, I can say HS4, right? House ID is HS4, right? So if you say, it will display only the house ID for one particular record. So that is the where statement, right? So that's all for நாங்கள் இந்த வீடியோவில் சில டேட்டாபேஸ் கேள்விகளும் அதற்கான பதில்களையும் சில ப்ராக்டிக்கலையும் பார்த்தோம். இன்னும் ஒரு வீடியோவில் சந்திப்போம். நன்றி, வணக்கம். தேங்க்யூ.